Hi, friends. It's Bob and Fran with our extraordinary friend, Lyndon Harris, as our special guest today.
He is one of the leading experts in the important topic of forgiveness and has taught about it worldwide. Lyndon's journey to forgiveness began at the foot of the South Tower of the former World Trade Center as it was attacked on September 11, 2001. He will share his insights as to how forgiveness plays a key role in healthy aging, starting at any time in your life. Be sure to watch this very powerful and inspiring presentation to the end, and please share it with others who might be able to benefit. Now, let's meet Lyndon.
Well, thanks, Bob and Fran. What a delight it is to be with you and to be with your audience this morning. I'm a big fan of yours, and I follow closely your work at being young to the last day of your life. And you've taught me so much, and you've helped me put my thoughts together about forgiveness and how I can offer workshops to the community. So I'm really grateful for that. And I'm grateful to be with you this morning. And I'll share just a little bit about how and why I'm a forgiveness teacher. So my journey to forgiveness began at the foot of the South Tower of the World Trade Center on the morning of 9/11, way back in 2001, when the second airplane collided with it. I was there because I had run up the street from my office to see what I could do to help out when I heard that the first plane had hit the first tower. And just as I got to the corner of Liberty and Church Streets there, the second plane hit the South Tower, and the explosion is unforgettable. And I still am able to see it easily in my mind's eye, and the trauma still has traces in my nervous system. But I had to run at that point, dodging debris. And, folks were also running who had been impacted by the first plane. And, folks were covered in debris and ashes and blood. It was a horrifying sight. From that point, I began a respite, an outreach to 9/11 first responders in the church where I was serving, St. Paul's Chapel, which is directly across the street from where the former World Trade Center Building 5 used to be. In fact, you could throw a baseball from our cemetery into, one of the windows at the World Trade Center Building 5. It was that close. We set up a rescue mission to serve the needs of the first responder community, ground zero community. We wound up over the course of 8.5 months serving over 500,000 meals. We had massage therapy and chiropractic care. We had podiatrists working around the clock. We had grief counselors, and we had musicians offering concerts 3 and 4 times a day. Mm-hmm. It was this beautiful experience that I refer to as a season of love. And that's a reference to a song in one of my favorite musicals, Rent. It was an extraordinary experience, but every day I was not only helping manage a 24/7 relief mission, but I was walking through the site, doing the last rites on body bags, or taking supplies, or connecting with folks and looking out for them, see how they're doing. A lot of firefighters and police officers were suffering great trauma from what they were doing, and I can I still have a tender place in my heart for every one of those men and women who served so courageously during that time. After it was all over in June of 2002, like many first responders, my life fell apart. I had some conflicts that I was dealing with in the church, and I felt personally that I didn't get the support that I needed in order to run the rescue mission at St. Paul's, and I became bitter about that. And then I doubled down on my bitterness and turned it into a full-blown victim's narrative, where every time you asked me how I felt, I'd tell you, and you could tell the story yourself if you knew me well, because you'd heard it so many times. And I was stuck in that loop. I spent a long time there, maybe a decade on and off. But eventually I heard these words of Nelson Mandela, the former president, the late president of South Africa, when he had served 27 years in prison. He came out and was elected president, and South Africa became, a flourishing country in the aftermath of apartheid. Still many struggles, but nevertheless had a brighter future. Mandela said that not to forgive is like drinking poison and waiting for your enemies to die from it. Oh man, did I drink a lot of poison, If I'm honest, it tasted really good too sometimes, because when I drink that poison, I had a whole community of people to play one of my favorite games with me. And it's that old game called Ain't It Awful? The problem is, every time I told that story, every time I took a sip of that poison, a part of me died. A part of me was diminished. And I discovered that what Fred Luskin says, the forgiveness teacher at Stanford University, a dear friend and someone I work with now, he says that at its most basic level, forgiveness is making peace with the word no. You wanted something to happen that didn't happen, or something happened that you did not want to have happen. And when that happens, we create a story related to it. We grieve, I didn't get this, or I didn't want this. I didn't want 9/11 happen, that's for sure. And I wanted to get more support. At least I felt I didn't get what I needed. And that grief, if we let that grief continue beyond its life cycle, it becomes a grievance. A grievance narrative is created, and we create a grievance narrative that can then pretty much run our lives. And forgiveness, making peace with the word no, is how we overcome our grievances. What happens when we create a grievance is that something happens we didn't want to have happen, or something didn't happen we wanted to have happen. We have a grief process related to that, and then we make up a story. If there's a lot of blame in the story beyond a certain period of time, then it's unhealthy for us, because if we blame, we remain the same. Some great thinker once said that the biggest problem with this life is that none of us are going to get out alive. It's not a matter of whether we're going to die or not. We're all going to die at some point. And that's just natural. But we don't want to come to the end of our lives, as Thoreau said, and discover that we hadn't lived. So if we use that finality, that finitude of our existence, and we think about that in our daily lives, that makes each and every day more and more precious. We don't take it for granted. We don't take the blessings that we have for granted. Alice Walker published a new selection of poems about 4 years ago, and it's called Arrow to the Heart. And she makes reference to the Buddhist practice of the Heart Sutra. And she tells the story about an archer shooting an arrow that lands in her heart. And she says, this is the human condition. At some point or another, in the course of our lifetimes, every single one of us is going to have an arrow to our heart. It's what Miguel de Unamuno called the tragic sense of life. And, Jack Kornfield says that this life is a journey of 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows. So it's not a matter of whether we're going to have sorrows as well as the joys. It's just what happens. It's what is. And we live in the midst of that. And when we get an arrow shot into our hearts, it hurts and we're bleeding. And what we need to do at that point is to find some help. We need to remove the arrow. We need to find the best healing practices we can get. And we can survive arrows to the heart if we do that. But what typically happens, and what happened to me, is I got that arrow shot to my heart. And I spent the next decade complaining about why it should not have been me getting the arrow to the heart, or how horrible the archer is who shot the arrow in the first place, or how this other person's arrow looks better than my arrow. You know, we can spend all this time complaining and not doing the very thing we need to do. We need to find a way to embrace practice of forgiveness. So I'm a forgiveness teacher now, and I want to share with you briefly what forgiveness is and is not, so that we're clear about the methodology that I use. And this is maybe one of the most important teachings. This is a wellness-based, evidence-based, scientific methodology on forgiveness that's been tested for over 20 years. And it originated in the doctoral research of Frederick Luskin at Stanford University, who co-founded the Stanford Forgiveness Project, which he directs to up to today and continues. And so he says that forgiveness, let's talk about what forgiveness is not first. Forgiveness is not condoning unkindness. It doesn't mean forgetting something painful has happened. It's not excusing poor behavior. It doesn't mean we're letting people off the hook for treating us poorly. So often we think that it is. And forgiveness does not have to be a religious experience or an otherworldly experience. It can be a human practice of well-being. It's wonderfully baptizable if you're a religious person, but it doesn't have to be. Forgiveness, importantly, does not mean reconciling with an offender. Forgiveness does not mean that we give up having our feelings. And forgiveness does not exclude our right to pursue justice. We might forgive someone for a perpetration against us, but if there are damages to be reclaimed, we have every right to pursue those through the courts of law. So that's what forgiveness is not. So what is forgiveness? And this is his clinical definition. Forgiveness is that peace you learn to feel when you let go of your grievances. Forgiveness is for you and not for the offender. We hear so many times, well, they haven't apologized. How am I going to forgive them? Well, that's a misunderstanding of the methodology that we teach anyway. If you're waiting your whole life for someone to apologize to you before you forgive them, why are you carrying this incredibly heavy burden unnecessarily? Forgiveness is for you, for us, and not the offender. And forgiveness is taking back your power. The biggest problem with being a victim is that you don't have any power. We all have been victimized in life. That's the nature of life. We have the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows. We all receive arrows to our heart from time to time. But forgiveness is taking back your power and making peace with what has happened to you so that you can move forward on your life's journey. It's about your healing and not about the people who hurt you. The good news is that forgiveness is a trainable life skill, just like learning to throw a baseball. Forgiveness helps us with our mental and physical health. It helps us live better, more resilient lives. Everyone can choose to forgive, and forgiveness is ultimately a choice that we can make. So forgiveness is about letting go of grievances that cause us suffering and pain after a period of time. So for me, it took a long time to let go of my grievances around 9/11. But when I got to the point where I could tell my story without blaming someone else for how miserable I am, I found out that I have a lot of power. There's this beautiful illustration by Stephen Karpman, who's a psychologist, and he talks about the dreaded drama triangle. And that triangle is the triangle in which in our lives we're a victim. And a victim is complaining about what happened to him. A victim is complaining about what he didn't get. A victim is complaining about, how awful the world is. And there's always something to complain about and always something to blame. But juxtaposed over against the victim on the other side of the page is the heroic triangle, or the author's triangle. So in forgiveness in our lives, we can go from being a victim to becoming the author of our lives, and we rewrite our destinies. That's a healthy recipe for successful aging and for living a good and great life into our elder years. So forgiveness is incredibly connected with longevity of life. I want to share with you some of the research that I've pulled up. The doctors at the Mayo Clinic, okay, so that's a pretty good reference, right? And an article they have about the adult health in-depth forgiveness. They say that letting go of grudges relieves our immune system of negative effect and other inflammatory conditions. Forgiveness leads to 1, healthier relationships, 2, improved mental health, 3, less anxiety, stress, and hostility, lower blood pressure, fewer symptoms of depression, a stronger immune system, improved heart health, improved self-esteem and confidence. That's incredible. Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, in an article entitled "Forgiveness, Your Health Depends on It," says that studies have found the following health benefits related to forgiveness: improved cardiac health, lowering the risk of heart attack, improving cholesterol levels and sleep, reducing pain, blood pressure, stress, levels of anxiety, and depression. That's incredible. And one of the studies that Fred Luskin cites in his beautiful book, and I recommend it, it's called Forgive for Good, a proven prescription for health and happiness, says that there's a fascinating study that shows that just thinking about something that makes you angry for 5 minutes depresses your heart rate variability. Heart rate variability, or HRV, is a crucial measure of nervous system health. A depressed HRV is a significant predictor. A depressed level of HRV is a significant predictor of those who will not survive heart attack, heart disease. In this study, researchers discovered that the 5 minutes of anger also depresses your immune system, and your immune response is diminished. 5 minutes of anger depresses your immune system for 4 to 6 hours. That's something to think about. In the same study, researchers found that if we spend 5 minutes thinking about someone we care about, someone we love, or thinking about a positive experience, or even a mindfulness exercise that creates a positive effect in our experience, researchers have found that 5 minutes shows a vast improvement of heart rate variability, a vast improvement in immune function, and harmonized brain function that increases the ability to think creatively and clearly. That's really incredible. And just one more piece of research. Sarah Pressman at the University of California in Irvine, she found that the probability of dying early is 20% higher for obese people, 30% higher for excessive drinkers, 50% higher for smokers, but a whopping 70% higher for people with poor social relationships. Incredible. I used to tell my couples in premarital counseling when they first came to me that to remember that the only conflict-free existence is death. And they would say, wow, thank you. I thought we were coming to plan a wedding. I said, no, the only conflict-free existence that we can figure so far is death. And so it's not a matter of whether you're going to have conflict. It's how you deal with your conflict. It's how you resolve your conflict. It's how you transform your conflict. Forgiveness is the healing salve, the healing balm that helps us live better, more productive, happier, more resilient lives full of joy and possibility and promise. And that's the medicine I'm talking about today. And it's available for every one of us if we open our hearts. So I'm going to ask your viewers, what are you holding on to? Where are you stuck? What are you holding on to that you just can't let go? Can you see this posture? This is the posture of a heart attack waiting to happen. You know, all the while you could just let it go and be free. Letting it go doesn't mean you're letting someone off the hook for doing bad things. Not letting go means you're doing bad things to yourself because you're putting your body through this very difficult and trying experience that depresses your heart rate variability, depresses your immune system, increases your blood pressure, robs you of your sleep at night because you don't have peace. Holding on to a grudge, renting out too much space in your head on a grudge that another person has probably forgotten about. It's not in your best interest. It's not your friend. If we can invite people to become more giving, more forgiving people, then they exhibit more happiness and joy in their hearts. And that creates a ripple effect into the world. You know, Gandhi was serious when he said that we should be, not just think about, but we should be the peace we wish to see in the world. So if you want to see more peace in the world, become a more peaceful person. If you want to see a more generous world, practice your own generosity. You know, these are the elements that will help us thrive into our later years and extend our lives significantly, according to this. So forgiveness, it's not just an idea, it's a tool for healthy living and a tool for, you know, becoming the author of your life, of reclaiming your power, not remaining a victim in someone else's narrative, but becoming the hero on your own journey in life. So I recommend it. How's that?
That's amazing. I don't think people have any idea just how important it is to forgive.
Yeah.
And I think you made it so clear today. Thank you.
You know, and why don't we forgive? We're afraid, you know, we're afraid we let somebody off the hook for doing something bad to us, but holding that negativity, carrying it around, it's like, you know, acid eventually disintegrates the container in which it's held. This is like acid, this anger, this resentment, this grievance, and we're more prone to heart disease and depression. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if you remember this, Lyndon, but we actually took one of your workshops, and we personally felt that you opened our minds and our hearts to just a whole new way of handling situations. And I'm just wondering if the folks out there would be interested in attending any workshop that you may have, or if they want to maybe create a workshop for their community, or if they want to have you speak at an event. I mean, I know you've spoken all over the world, and I wondered if that's still possible. I know your schedule's pretty busy. How would you respond to that for folks that would like to engage more?
Sure, I would be happy to talk with folks. I do groups, you know, have forgive groups that are 6 sessions, and I look to have maybe 6 to 8 or 9 folks in a group to make a group viable and to give it the kind of experience that we're looking for. So 6 group sessions, about 90 minutes each. So that's one thing. I'm doing those over Zoom now. And I also do forgiveness coaching. So if you're stuck and you're wrestling with, you know, something you can't let go, I'm happy to put my shoulder under that burden with you and see what we can do about that. And I also speak for different groups, and I'm happy to retreats or keynote speeches or anything that's useful and helpful.
Well, I appreciate that. What we'll do is put your contact information in the description section below, and just invite people if they want to engage more, if they want to learn more, if they want to put a group together, just to contact you directly. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
That's great.
And just remember, if you're in the playground of life and you're on the monkey bars and you're hanging in the middle stuck, okay? Here you are in the middle. This is where a lot of us spend life. I've spent a lot of life hanging on hanging onto the monkey bars stuck. What's the only way you can move forward? You got to let go of that one and reach for the future. We create our lives one monkey bar run at a time, one forgiveness experience at a time. The more we forgive, the better we get at forgiving, and it becomes a practice, it becomes a heartbeat, it becomes a breath within our bodies. So we deflect a lot of negative energy from us. We don't become like the glue strip that attracts it. We're able to just kind of gently defer it and not accept it. And that's how we live healthier, happier lives, through forgiveness. It's an honor to be with you guys. I'm happy to talk more or to come back. Happy to be in touch with any of your audience. Really grateful for your work in helping us see, the incredible benefits of mindfulness, of Qigong, of eating healthy, helps us improve our lives. And I see us as partners in this grand experiment. And I'm grateful for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lyndon. We sure appreciate your taking the time to be with us. And I know that our viewers will be responsive. And say hello to your beautiful wife, Maria, for us, and your dog, Maggie. And
yes, and the three hens.
and your three hens.
Thank you. Yeah.